Welcome, everyone, to the 2021 Brooklyn Power 100 webinar. My name is Ralph Ortega, and I'm the editor-in-chief of City and State New York. We appreciate everyone coming together to honor these 100 outstanding individuals from Brooklyn. First, I would really like to thank our sponsor, Christian Culture Center, for their continued support of City and State New York. Now, just a few housekeeping points to make. Please make sure, if you are writing in the chat box, that you send it to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see what you're saying. We likely won't have time to take questions from the audience, but just in case, please submit those to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens. As we continue with our virtual events, we want to make a point to acknowledge all those people going above and beyond in their communities. While we wish we could be in person, we want to make those who made the list feel extra special. So please feel free to shout out your colleagues, family, or friends in the chat box and send them a special message. We'll be posting the link to the power list on our website in the chat box as well. So be sure to check out all the profiles when you get a chance. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker of the evening, Jumaan E Williams, the public advocate of the City of New York. Previously, he served on the New York City Council representing the 45th District. Jumaane is a first-generation Brooklynite of Grenadian heritage. He graduated from the public school system, overcoming the difficulties of Tourette's and ADHD, to earn a master's degree from Brooklyn College. He began his career at the Greater Flatbush Beacon School and later served as the executive director of the New York State Tenants and Neighbors. There, he fought for truly affordable income-targeted housing across New York City and New York State. On the New York City Council, Jumaane championed landmark legislation that fundamentally transformed policing in New York City. Jumaane sponsored the Community Safety Act, reforming the city police department by addressing the abuses of stop, question, and frisk in communities of color, and creating the NYPD's Office of Inspector General to investigate unlawful and unethical behavior. Jumaane has led the fight for better policing and safer streets, affordable housing, and transparency, as well as accountability in city government. As public advocate, Jumaane continues to be an activist elected official who brings the voices of everyday New Yorkers to city government and makes New York a truly progressive beacon for all. Now, please help me in welcoming public advocate Jumaan E Williams.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Peace and blessings. Love and light to you and to everyone who's here. My pleasure. Hello, everyone. This is your public advocate and one of City and State's keynote speakers and residents. My name is Jumaan E Williams, and if a few more of you had done it a few years ago, I'd be about 13 days away from becoming the next governor of New York State. Obviously, we're having this event at a very tumultuous moment. And I know many of us are here. Because as much as we try to pretend we hate and don't like these lists, most of us are very excited when they come out and even more honored if our name is mentioned there. And two, because of the tumultuous moment that we're in currently in this crisis of leadership. Many of us here are going to help us get through it. I feel like this year's Brooklyn Power 100 list should have live updates all evening as we figure out the landscape of what New York's politics and government will look like in the next month, weeks, and days. So much is unknown. But here at the Brooklyn Power 100, there are some things we do know and we have always known, and I think a lot of folks are catching up now. Mainly, Brooklyn's pretty dope, and it's been pretty dope for a very long time. And although we didn't birth it, Brooklyn is where hip hop grew up and where I did. Though I did spend my first few days of life in Manhattan, I was quickly brought back to the home of Brooklyn. I'm citywide now, so I have to be very careful when I speak and make sure I give kudos to all of the boroughs, but I think it's pretty clear I'm a Brooklyn boy at heart. Brooklyn has always been my home for every year of my life. It's also been my political home. It's where I came up in politics, whether Brooklyn College student government, And eventually, the Thomas Jefferson Democratic Club. People are often shocked when they hear that, but it's true. It's striking what's the same since then and what's changed fundamentally. Among the changes, I have to take a moment to acknowledge someone who would have been on these lists for years if they were put out when he was around. One of the people who actually gave me a start and who passed away just a few years back, his name was Councilmember Lou Fiddler. And he did a lot to shape up the Brooklyn streets, especially of South Brooklyn. And just a few months ago, I was very honored to be there when they named one of those streets after him. I think that he and the friendship that we shared really shows the diversity of thought and background that shows up in Brooklyn and in politics. And it really shows that you can move forward, even if you have divergent views, the way he and I did, still got a lot done in this borough, in this city. Across the spectrum is where Brooklyn is showing up. Now, barring something crazy in November, Brooklyn is home to all three of the incoming citywide elected officials: the mayor, the comptroller, the public advocate, also the Senate Majority Leader, the House Conference Chair, and the Attorney General. So when you hear someone say, "Where Brooklyn at?" we're in some of the most powerful roles in the country. Matter of fact, you ask that question anywhere in the world, you're gonna get some excitement. That's how powerful Brooklyn is. It's true, the people on this list have the power to shape Brooklyn, to serve Brooklyn in so many ways. This is a strange day to be talking about power. It's an important one, because I want to talk about power and how it's used, how it can be used and abused and misused, and what standing up to power looks like versus standing behind it. Now, of course, we know what's going on today in the state. The governor resigned because many of us believe he misused and abused power. Even if he doesn't admit it, that's what it was and what it is. He used his power, the power that he had, not over only women as was described, but he also used power over the state to try and hide from accountability, time and time again. And here's the thing, it always worked for him in the past. And too often, this type of power works for people who have it. In this case, whether it's nursing homes, the book deal, the Moreland Commission, the Buffalo Building, Joe Prococo, we've been here before. But when people came forward, when brave women spoke out, they took some of that power from him. So he continued to use what he had left to power through, retaliating against accusers and detractors, cozying up to his enablers, defenders, and those who remained silent. He was trying to hang on to that power. And really, it should be an indictment of all of us, of our systems that we have in place, that it was almost working. When another Brooklynite, the awesome Attorney General Tish James, put out a report, the power structure began to collapse. And the governor found it impossible to try to rebuild and hold on. Because when your power is built on the mere fact that you have it and all that it entails, then once it looks like it's slipping away, it often becomes impossible to reclaim. And maybe that will be the final lesson learned. I'm frustrated, as with many, that it took this much to get to this point, because there were quite a number of us out there even before this report, before the allegations, before the Emmy, who knew who the governor was and who said so plainly and clearly. And then, of course, there were people who knew and didn't say anything. Abuse and misuse of power continues when it's enabled, when people are silent. The governor's failures aren't new. I think most of us here actually know it. The willingness to be against him for many is. And there's a difference between standing up in recent days versus opposing when he had the power to fight back. Too often, that's less about a principled opposition and more about pragmatic opportunism. And I'm mentioning this because we have to be clear, standing up to power does involve risks. We're going to see a lot of people in the coming days, we already have, who try to rewrite history, and we cannot let that happen. The lessons that we have to learn are too important as we move forward in this borough, in this city, in this state. Because this has to be a moment that we learn from. We have to learn and accept that power shouldn't just come from fear and expectation. It should come from the people we serve. It has to if we want to move forward. It's my hope that this serves as a time for us to reframe notions of what a strong public servant should embody, being a leader rather than just playing on one on TV. Very often, many of us get into these positions and we try to mimic the power structures we saw before we got there. Instead of trying to put down new ones that really benefit the people. Fighting for justice, not just for power. Serving the needs of the oppressed, not propping up the systems of oppression. With Governor Cuomo removed from the position of power that he long abused, I am very optimistic that we can restore that power to the people and repurpose it to renew New York. New York needs new leadership. Maybe it'll be someone from Brooklyn, maybe someone on this list, maybe someone on this Zoom, maybe someone with a history of statewide activism and an unwavering passion for the New York Knicks. That might be a little too specific. But in all seriousness, no matter who's leading our state from Albany, I know that Brooklyn will be leading the way, and Brooklyn will be in that conversation. And what we have to do with the power that we have is make sure that it's not just for the people who are holding it. And in truth, not just for Brooklyn, but for all of the people who live in New York City, and do our best to all of the people who live in this state. That's when true power is at its best. I'm excited to be here with so many Brooklynites committed to not just getting on the list, but getting things done for the people who put us in power. Lastly, I'll say the first thing you learned in my classes and trying to learn how to become a community organizer was a relationship with power. And they asked a bunch of us who were community organizers, the first question was, who wants power? And many people didn't know what to do. Because as an organizer, you have a strange relationship with power. And so you're scared of whether to raise your hand or not. And the answer was, as an organizer, you got to shoot your hand up. You got to raise it. Anyone who's in this business and in politics and organizing, power is not the issue. It's what you do with it. And as an organizer, you learn that you want to get the power so you can really give it back to the people and have the people help navigate a system that has been oppressive and put down another one that truly benefits them. Thank you for the opportunity, city and state. Peace and blessings to you all. Love and light. Brooklyn, New York. Let's go.
Thank you for those really inspiring words, Public Advocate Williams, and putting in perspective the whole notion of power and how it's best used during these, as you said, very difficult times. Next, we will hear from Assemblymember Rodneyse Bichotte Hermelyn. Rodneyse is the Assemblymember and State Committee woman, district leader for New York State's 42nd Assembly District. She is also the first Haitian American woman elected in the city of New York. Assemblymember Bichotte Hermelyn holds the position of chair of the subcommittee on oversight of minority and women-owned business enterprise, also known as MWBEs. Assemblymember Bichotte Hermelyn is the co-chair of the New York State Association of Black and Puerto Rican Legislator Workshops Committee, and has been appointed by Governor Cuomo's Advisory Council on Domestic Violence, and appointed to Mayor Bill de Blasio's Advisory Council on Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprises. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Assemblymember Bichotte Hermelyn.
Thank you, Ralph. Good evening, Brooklyn. Sac passe. I'm Assemblymember Rodneyse Bichotte Hermelyn, and tonight we are here to celebrate Brooklyn's leading government officials, labor leaders, advocates, activists, and others. And in addition, we are here to celebrate the force that our borough has become, with New York poised to have its second consecutive Brooklyn mayor, Eric Adams. It is clear that we in Brooklyn are no longer an outer borough. This year in City Hall, we finally have a female majority, many from Brooklyn. And today we heard from our first female who will be our first female governor, Kathy Hochul. And as the first Black woman to chair the Brooklyn Democratic Party, that brings me enormous pride. When women lead, we see assertive, commanding leadership. But before I go on, I certainly want to acknowledge our MC for tonight, Ralph Ortega, who's the editor-in-chief of City and State New York, Jumaan E Williams, who you just heard from, who's the public advocate of New York City, and New York City Council member, and our next borough president of Brooklyn, Antonio Reynoso. I was born in Brooklyn, a place with one of the largest immigrant communities, the most diverse in the borough of Brooklyn, as well as in the state of New York. A borough that has the largest number of foreign spoken languages. Brooklyn is powerful because the people are powerful. The voice of the people, having to hear our people speak up, and the power of voting is what makes Brooklyn so dynamic, which is why we have such a strong group of candidates this year from Brooklyn who were elected, and legislators who will continue to lead our community. This year, our borough had many extraordinary accomplishments in the legislature when we passed historic election reforms that expanded our ability to make our voices heard. We redesigned the absentee ballots to make it easier for voters to make their preference clear, expanded access to ballot and drop boxes, and passed legislation that extended the period of time to allow to cast ballots so that no timely vote would be discounted. Election reform has been moving out of Brooklyn. We have a number of legislators who have been leading the forces and making sure that every vote counts. And all of this this year was through a new system, the ranked choice voting system. As a result, in Brooklyn, we had a 40% increase in turnout since 2013, and we salute our voters because of this great achievement. This year, our borough was also met with extraordinary challenges, pain, and struggles. Our essential workers powered our city in the darkest days of the pandemic, providing not only life-saving treatment, but also connecting the ill with their loved ones in their final moments, holding their hands as this cruel disease continue in its rampage across the city, state, nation, and world. When COVID overwhelmed existing space at hospitals, they somehow found a way to continue to care for the ill. Nearly 1 million of them to date in New York City's latest case counts, in the face sometimes of active politically driven resistance to the most basic safeguards and practices. The debt we all owe them is unimaginable and enormous. And I'm talking about people like Amy O'Sullivan, a name that you heard very often on national TV, a nurse at Brooklyn's Wyckoff Heights Medical Center, who treated COVID patients from the very beginning of the pandemic, a place that took me in when I also was in danger of losing my life and giving birth. Indeed, she helped to treat the hospital's very first COVID patient. She then came down with the COVID herself, a serious case that led to intubation. But she not only fought back, she recovered with the help of her wife, Tiffany Latz, also a Wyckoff Heights nurse, and went right back to work. Her inspiring story led Mattel to create a Barbie doll in her image, but the true tribute to O'Sullivan and the thousands of other Brooklyn healthcare professionals is in the lives that they save and restore. Brooklynites like Amy O'Sullivan are proud, compassionate, and resilient. And as Jeff Colton recently pointed out, we have the largest Black population in the city. Black candidates are more likely to come from Brooklyn. And Black candidates are now getting elected more than ever in New York. I am proof of that, and I'm happy to represent a borough of such great diversity. Brooklyn has the largest number of Democrats of nearly any county in the nation, about 1.2 million. And as such, it is our responsibility to raise our standards high. While New York is a uniquely blue city, we are home to people of all political ideologies. And I am proud that we banded together during these difficult times. Our healthcare workers, our labor leaders, activists, and officials, like those we are honoring tonight, banded together to see us through these dark days to brighter ones that lie ahead. I am also thrilled to see so many diverse leaders on the Brooklyn Power 100 list. We have our Mayor, Bill de Blasio, our next mayor, Eric Adams, our Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, Attorney General Tish James, Representative Hakeem Jeffries, District Attorney for Brooklyn, Eric Gonzalez, our Public Advocate, Jumaan E Williams, our Representative in Congress, Velasquez and Yvette Clark, our next Controller, Brad Lander, and so many new elected leaders in the council. And just give a shout out to the new council members in Brooklyn. We have Alexa Aviles, Jennifer Gutierrez, Shahana Hanif, Crystal Huston, Rita Joseph, Ari Kagan, Darlene Mealy, Mercedes Narcisse, Sandy Nurse, Chiose, Lincoln Ressler, and Stephen Saperstein. And also, I have to shout out to another person on the list, my husband, Edu Hermelyn, who is #1 on my list. And New York City is about to welcome a mayor who does not ebb and flow on the basis of public support and popularity, but on what he believes is true. Eric Adams knows that public safety is the cornerstone to economic prosperity. Political pragmatism is not always popular, but we must move beyond partisan politics. Brooklyn has long been the cool borough, but we have elevated it to become the power borough. We all know about its cool art scene, which is infinity of artists, performers, writers, creators, and musicians. We know about the support of all boroughs' cool, creative restaurants, bars, and food trucks, always kicking what we thought we knew about food up a notch. We know about the tech side too, those geniuses working on the next thing that quickly becomes indispensable. I remember those days as a former engineer, coding. But it's time for Brooklyn to claim its rightful place as a forward-thinking political superpower, always ahead of the curve in bringing shape to the new American dream. A beacon like that tall lady in the harbor to others in the city and around the world of not only what is possible, but what is necessary and just. And it's time for Brooklyn to leverage its power economically in the service of its political potential. Being the cool borough has made Brooklyn the borough of gentrification and overdevelopment. A resident in Flatbush recently told me, I don't want to live in Manhattan when faced with upzoning crisis. So it's vitally important that we don't lose the character that makes Brooklyn, Brooklyn. That we keep a guiding light on our past as we stake our claim on the future. Our future depends on continuing to elect strong democratic leaders. To do that, we need to show up. We have to be willing to get to the polls. It is our civic responsibility to take part in our community. And the most fundamental way we do that is by exercising our constitutional right to voice how we think our city and state should be run. And I must say, I am learning more about my constitutional right because Brooklyn has allowed me to go to law school at Brooklyn Law. That's why Brooklyn is Brooklyn. If we don't, we will be handling a blank check to those in this country who will like nothing more than to roll back voting rights and impose harsh constraints on the process. The people who shouted, "Stop the steal," when they were the ones who were trying to do the stealing. And as Jay-Z said, Brooklyn, we back on the map. Today, it's safe to say we are going out for it all. Thank you, and congratulations to all of you who made the Brooklyn Power List of 100.
Thank you, Assembly Member. I just want to take this moment to thank our wonderful sponsor of this evening's webinar. Thank you to the Christian Culture Center for their support. Lastly, we'll hear from New York City Council Member Antonio Reynoso. Antonio Reynoso is the council member for the 34th District, representing parts of Bushwick, Ridgewood, and Williamsburg. Antonio currently serves as chair of the Sanitation and Solid Waste Management Committee and co-chair of the Brooklyn delegation. In his previous term, he served as co-chair of the council's Progressive Caucus. As a legislator, Antonio has passed legislation to overhaul the private sanitation industry, improve police-civilian interactions, and protect tenants' rights. Born and raised in the south side of Williamsburg, Antonio aims to improve quality of life within the district while advancing bold progressive legislation citywide. Please help me give a warm welcome to Council Member Reynoso.
Thank you so much, Ralph Ortega, for introducing me. And I want to first start off by congratulating all the members of the Power 100 and the folks that are speaking today, all from the Caribbean, which I just want to say Afro-Caribbean leadership is also growing in Brooklyn. Shout out to my sister, Assemblymember Bichotte, from the same island on a different side, and to Jumaan E Williams for the work that he's done. Also from Grenada, all Caribbean, I just really want to shout that out. And I'm actually here from the Dominican Republic. I'm on paternity leave, so I'm here in my island. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. I'm looking forward to maybe next year being able to be here together. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Antonio Reynoso, and I am the council member of the 34th Council District and the Democratic nominee for Brooklyn BP. It is a pleasure to be here with you and an honor to be recognized by City and State among such an esteemed list of fellow Brooklynites. This evening is about celebrating Brooklyn, the borough that we all love, and we all have a lot to celebrate because Brooklyn is doing big things. Following this June's primary election, it is almost certain that every single citywide office will be occupied by a Brooklynite. With Eric Adams as mayor, Brad Lander as controller, and Jumaan E Williams as public advocate, the Brooklyn Wave is first and foremost a testament to the heart and hard work that each of these nominees put into connecting with New Yorkers and the residents of their visions for how we can create a city where we can all thrive. However, it also speaks to the volumes of Brooklyn's broader value and what it means to be from our beautiful borough. You can see Brooklyn is America. It's where the American dream begins for so many all over the country and all over the world because of who we are, what we have, and what you can become. It is the borough of families who have fought through tough times to make, work with me here, through tough times to make the American dream work. Brooklyn is the embodiment of success, of progressive values and policies, and is truly the progressive heart of our city, state, and nation. With Brooklynites leading our city, the future of New York has never looked brighter. And I'm beyond excited and proud to lead alongside citywide elected officials as the future president of Brooklyn. As the son of immigrants from the Dominican Republic who came here with nothing, food stamps, Medicaid, Section 8, you name it, we had it. I know what it means to struggle, to succeed. I also know the power that government can have because of the impact it has had on my life. I believe that my success story should be the rule and not the exception. That's why as our borough's next VP, I'm committed to paying it forward by building a Brooklyn for all of us. As a council member, I've never been afraid to take on tough opponents. Whether it is standing up to big developers and protecting tenants and homeowners, reforming the NYPD, or overhauling the corrupt private sanitation industry. Now, as Brooklyn Borough President, I will guide Brooklyn in standing strong and putting together in the aftermath of COVID to finally address our affordable housing crisis, invest in our schools, and support a strong and equitable economy. The challenges that our borough and city face are daunting, but I know that if we pull together and work collaboratively with an unwavering eye on equity, we can rise above them. As Brooklynites, there's far more that unites us than divides us. We all want our children to have the opportunity to get a world-class education. We all want our neighbors to have a roof over their heads and be safe, quality affordable housing, and safe quality affordable housing. We all want our small businesses, the lifeblood of our communities, to thrive. We all want neighborhoods where children can play outside without the fear of gunshots going off. While we may differ on how to achieve these goals, our common goal of a city and borough where everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed, regardless of their zip code, must remain our guiding light and uniting force. As borough president, I will remain committed to this because the stakes are too high for division and discord to distract us from doing the work. As we rebuild, there is an opportunity to revise our broken land use policies through the implementation of comprehensive planning, address disparities in healthcare access, particularly Brooklyn's maternal mortality crisis for women of color, by outfitting our borough's public hospitals with state-of-the-art birthing facilities, revamp and retool our channels of community engagement through comprehensive community board reform, and invest real resources in the communities that were hit hardest by the pandemic. Our vision, yours and mine, for a more progressive, fair, and equitable future is in our hands. Now we need to get to work and deliver. We must show that courage of our convictions. There is too much at stake for any of us to half step. Together we can and will build Brooklyn back stronger than ever. Brooklyn is on the rise, and if you don't know, now you know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to now, thank you so much, Councilmember. I'd like to now prepare you all for the moment we've been waiting for. We will read out loud the 100 names of those who made the Brooklyn Power 100 list. Please feel free to shout out anyone on the list you wish to congratulate in the chat. And now for the 2021 Brooklyn Power 100. Mayor Bill de Blasio. Brooklyn Borough President and Democratic nominee likely to win in New York's upcoming mayoral race, Eric Adams. Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer. Attorney General, Letitia James. Congressmember, Hakeem Jeffries. Brooklyn District Attorney, Eric Gonzalez. Public Advocate, Jumaan E Williams. Congressmember, Nydia Velázquez. Assembly Member and Chair of the Brooklyn Democratic Party, Rodneyse Bichotte Hermelyn. Congressmember Yvette Clarke. New York City Council Member and Democratic nominee likely to win in New York City's upcoming comptroller race, Brad Lander. Frank Carone, Executive Partner at Abrams Fensterman. Randy Piers, President and CEO of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. David Greenfield, CEO and Executive Director of Met Council. Jed Walentes, CEO of Two Trees. Antonio Reynoso, New York City Council Member and Democratic nominee likely to become Brooklyn's next borough president. A.R. Bernard, Senior Pastor of the Christian Cultural Center Megachurch. Regina Meyer, President of the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. And this is all in one entry. State Senators Kevin Parker, Roxanne Persaud, Brian Kavanagh, Andrew Gurnards, Simcha Felder, and Zellner Myrie. Big shout out. Ingrid Martin, Deputy Brooklyn Borough President. Council Member Lori Cumbo. Council Member Justin Brannon. Carlo Cesura, President and CEO of the New York Building Congress. David Ehrenberg, President and CEO of the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Linda E. Johnson, President and CEO of the Brooklyn Public Library. Doug Steiner, Chair of Steiner Studios. All in one entry. Jabari Brisport, Julia Salazar, Farah Sufrat Forrest, Emily Gallagher, and Marcella Metaines, all members of Socialists in Office. And these are all in one entry as well. Assembly Member Peter Abate, Assembly Members Peter Abate, Robert Carroll, William Colton, Maritza Davila, Simcha Eichenstein, Diana Richardson, Joanne Simon, Latrice Walker, and Helene Weinstein. The next entry, Assembly Members Charles and Inez Barron. Council Member Farah Lewis. Council Member Kalman Yeager. And all in one entry, New York City Council primary winners, Lincoln Ressler, Jennifer Gutierrez, Crystal Hudson, Chai Asi, Sandy Nurse, Alexa Aviles, Shahana Hanif, Rita Joseph, Darlene Mealy, Mercedes Narcisse, Stephen Saperstein, and Ari Kagan. Big shout out to y'all. Our next entry, Evan Thies, partner at Pythia Public. Tiffany Raspberry, founder of York Group. Mike Kioff and Juanita Scarlett, partners at Bolton St. John's. Jacqueline M. Kisulis, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District. Joseph and Clara Wu Tsai, co-owners of the Brooklyn Nets. Nicholas DiMarzio, Bishop of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Brooklyn. Errol Lewis, journalist at Spectrum New York One and host of the program Inside City Hall. Kenneth Gibbs, President and CEO of Maimonides Medical Center. Lorraine Brown, Chief Executive at One Brooklyn Health. All in one entry, the CEOs of the New York Health and Hospitals, Woodhull, Coney Island, and Kings County Hospitals, Gregory Kaliste, Svetlana Lipyaneskaya, and Sheldon McLeod, all respectively. Scott Lauren, President of Mount Sinai, Brooklyn. Robert Guimento, President of New York Presbyterian Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. Jerry Terranani, President and CEO of the Brooklyn Hospital Center. Jennifer Jones Austin, CEO of FPWA. Johnny Yaswine, founder and CEO of Yaswine, New York. Susan Donahue, President and Park Administrator for the Prospect Park Alliance. And all of these go together in one entry. Jose Lopez, Arlenis Morel, and Theo Oshiro, co-executive directors at Make the Road New York. Alyssa Aguilera and Jeremy Saunders, co-executive directors at Vocal NY. And this is Amelia Adams and Yvette Buckner, the chair and vice chair respectively of 21 and 21. Murad Awade, executive director at the New York Immigration Coalition. Andrew Kimball, CEO of Industry City. Jamila Edwards, Associate Assistant Director of DC 37. Gabby Say, Political Director at 1199 SEIU. Michelle Krenstill, Political Director at NYSNA. Sandra Scott, Executive Director at One Brooklyn Health, Brookdale Hospital Medical Center. Risa Heller, CEO of Risa Heller Communications. L. Joy Williams, President of the Brooklyn NAACP. Kirsten John Foy, President and CEO of the Arc of Justice. Ken Fisher, attorney with Cozen O'Connor. Jovia Radix, Vice President Legislation at Casserer. Elizabeth Yampierre, Executive Director at Uprose. David Niederman, Executive Director at United Jewish Organizations. Michael Nieves, President and CEO of the Hispanic Information and Telecommunications Network, HITN. Rosemary Montalbano, Kings County Surrey Court Judge nominee. Tara Martin, consultant, TLM Strategic Advisors. Whitney Hugh, founder of the South Brooklyn Mutual Aid. Jeff Brodus, Senior Vice President, CMW Strategies. Jonathan Weston, Executive Director, New York Communities for Change. Colvin Granum, President and CEO of the Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation. Political consultant, Trip Yang. Lee Silberstein, partner at Marino. Helena Kovacevic, Dean at NYU Tandon School of Engineering. Wayne Riley, President of SUNY Downstate Health. Miguel Martinez Sáenz, the Dean of St. Francis College. Torian Easterling, First Deputy Commissioner and Chief Equity Officer at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Brian X. Grimaldi, Vice President, Corporate Affairs at the New York National Grid. Lupe Todd Medina, President at Effective Media Strategies. Kimberly Peeler Allen and Glinda Carr, co-founders of Higher Heights for America, PAC. Ifoma Ike, co-founding principal of Think Rubik's. She's also a professor at Lehman College. Gabrielle Gallucci, National Director of Governmental and Political Affairs at the American Federation of School Administrators. Janelle Farris, Executive Director and President of Brooklyn Community Services. Clinton Miller, pastor of Memorial Baptist Church. Bertha Lewis, founder and president of the Black Institute. Donald R. Boomgarden, president of St. Joseph's College. Samaya L. Romain, founder of the Women's Empowerment Coalition of New York City. Jackie Williams, principal at 99 Solutions. Patricia Ramsey, president at Medgar Evers College. Paul Mack, president and CEO of the Brooklyn Chinese and American Association. Brooklyn Chinese American Association. Armina Gale, president of the Brooklyn Bar Association. Rob Gore, executive director at KAVI. And all in one entry, the following district leaders: Jesse Pierce, Julio Pena III, and Samuel Namir Olivares. District leader Edu Hermelyn, Michael Kevin Williams, the editor of Caribbean Life News. Carl and Faye Rodney, founders and publishers of New York Carib News. Taharka Robinson, founder of the Brooklyn Anti-Violence Coalition. Jude Bernard, president and CEO of the Brooklyn Bank. Jeff Lindor, founder and CEO of the Gentleman's Factory. And last but not least, Christopher Torres, executive director at Friends of the BQX. That's our entire list for this year's 2021 Brooklyn Power 100. I'd like to, again, thank our sponsors, the Christian Cultural Center, the Christian Culture Center. And I would like to follow up by announcing some upcoming events. Please join us on Tuesday, August 17th, for our annual Education in New York Summit. Registration is free and can be found on our website and in the chat. Please join us on Wednesday, August 18th, for our 15th anniversary celebration at 6:30 p.m. at the Midtown Loft Terrace. Yes, that's in person. We'll be following all of the COVID protocols for making sure that everyone is safe. We will require vaccination for attendance at that event. Tickets are $75 and they can be purchased on our website and in the chat. Please join us on Thursday, September 9th, for our virtual Labor Power 100 at 5 p.m. Registration is free and can be found on our website and in the chat. Thank you once again for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the speakers and felt honored. Let me thank our sponsor once again for supporting this event. Thank you, Christian Culture Center. Thanks, and I hope we see all of you really soon. Stay safe.